On this week's FPL Happy Hour. That sounds like fun to me. Um, Listener, what do you think? Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of our new podcast, FPL Happy Hour, with me, Sham, otherwise known as FPL2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good.
You look
Yeah,
knackered.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Yeah.
I've chosen coffee tonight rather than a whiskey.
Yeah,
There's
I'm with you, mate.
got a bit of
I'm
stuff,
with you.
got a bit of stuff to do in there, and to make sure that we get this out on time tomorrow.
Yep. Well, speaking of tonight, Rob, we're going to be changing things up, and we've decided that going forward, we will be looking at things from more of a statistical point of view. So for our hot topics, we'll be backing things up with stats. How does that sound to you?
It sounds all right to me. Except the topic I got this I chose this week for us to discuss. The stats aren't great, so yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Um, and speaking of our hot topics, tonight we'll be discussing the triple captainship and stats, along with kind of players to choose. And Rob has got Spurs assets. We also have our new feature called Sham Stats, which each week I'll be looking at 2 to 3 stats that have caught my eye and of things that people have been talking about in the FPL community. That sounds like fun to me. Um, Listener, what do you think?
I'm done. That sounds like
um,
fun to me.
yeah. Before all of that, Rob, let's see how we did last week.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's move. Well, this week it was kind of fun. Um, yeah, I think I was really worried about how the week was going to pan out. And then Bruno did Bruno things, and then this evening we've seen Bamford come good and Dallas just go crazy. And the only thing that kind of caught me out was Rafinha. Yeah, my move last week, it was always looking forwards into 29. So, and the only move I could do was to take Loughton out and bring Dallas in. Um, Even though I did toy with the idea of doing Souček to Rafinha as well. But yeah, another clean sheet for Man City. So Diaz and Stones both picking up the clean sheet points. BPS as well for Diaz. I got it right with Johnston over Martinez. Really happy with that. Even though when Adehi got red carded, was it about 25 minutes in, half an hour in?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to sweat on it, but West Brom were by far the better team in that game. I can't believe they did not score. Um, I was I was sitting there watching it, like it's not that sort of game that you'd think, oh yeah, I'll sit down and watch West Brom v Burnley. That's going to be the highlight of my Saturday afternoon. But it was the second half was great. It was
Rob, to quote something I just said, that sounds like fun to me.
um, so yeah, I ended up sitting there watching it, and I thought I was really willing West Brom on. A, because I've got Johnston as my keeper, and so if they're attacking and taking the game to Burnley, it's stopping Burnley from attacking. And B, there was a lot of people with Pope in their teams this week, and I was praying that he wouldn't get the clean sheet, especially when he picked up the save point quite early on in the game as well. Um, but yeah, another Salah blank. Um, I I think he's going this week. That's it for Mohamed Salah in my FPL team this season. I think if he comes back, it's not until the last 4 or 5 weeks. Um, Gundogan, nothing much, but he was sitting slightly deeper with De Bruyne back. But it's still interestingly, he had a couple of good chances, and I can still see the returns coming, so there's no panic there. DCL came on, got the assist, did the penalty. It was a penalty, in my opinion. What do you think? Was it a penalty to you?
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty.
Yeah.
I thought it was a penalty.
I've, I think now it's settled down. I don't think there's much of the arguments there. But yeah, it was a penalty. Like if Trent's not there, DCL scores. Simple as that. And we all know DCL's a striker. In that position, he wants to stay on his feet and score, especially in the derby, doesn't he?
Hmm.
He doesn't want because he knows he's not getting the penalty if he goes down. A striker that's getting the penalty might have just gone down. And that's about it, really. Ings disappointing. But one good thing I did get right, I got all my bench right. I haven't got an excessive amount of points sitting on my bench. I've got 5 points sitting on the bench. So yeah, happy with that.
Another green arrow for you, then.
Yep, 80 points, 160 to. I mean, the leaderboards haven't updated, but it's about 140k, so a 20k green arrow. But before Rafinha scored, it was looking like a 50 to 60k green arrow, which yeah would have been amazing to be knocking on the door of the top 100, 100k, not 100. So yeah, all in all, a good week. And how did you do?
Yeah, decent week, mate. I had Barnes, so that was a good addition. I think that was kind of the main difference between most teams. I had Barnes, and I was looking good before the Leeds game tonight. I had the double Burnley clean sheet, so whilst you were there sweating, wanting Burnley to concede, I was hoping the opposite. So Pope and me did their things. So that was 84 points, and then obviously I had Grealish as well, and I had an indication that he wasn't going to play after the rumours on Friday, but I thought let me just leave him in here because we don't know how bad it is or anything like that. I had Calvert Lewin first sub, he came in for 4 points, and obviously I had Stones as well on the bench, but in reality, I don't think I could have really swapped Stones out for anyone else in the team. You
You
know,
you're only swapping him for me, aren't you? And it's the same
yeah,
points, more or
yeah.
less. So
Yeah, so Stone's got 6, me got 5, and see, I'm not going to bench Gundogan or Salah or Ings. Yeah, and so my transfer this week was Ings for Antonio, so that was a disappointment. See, Antonio would have got, I think, did he get 8 points in the end? Um,
I think he got a couple of bonus at least.
yeah, so that was a disappointment. But yeah, 88 points altogether. Green arrow to 200, I think 250k now. So that was 360 to 250. So moving in the right direction bit by bit. And we've got a big double game week ahead. And I'm hoping a lot of casuals will kind of die off from this point. So um, my aim after this week is to be between 100 and 150. Big ambition, I know, half in my rank, but I think with a good captaincy slash triple captaincy, I think it can be done.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
it's the same with me this week. This is the week that I'm breaking into top 100k. Like it's going to happen this week. Um, yeah, like we'll be looking at yeah a lot of the casuals that they'll they'll probably this is the week they'll probably use their final chip if they've still got the chips. Um,
Hmm.
and then after that, if they're not doing any, like if they're not in the top 1,000, that's it. So pretty much all of them just disappear, and then that's when we can really make up the ground. But yeah, it's I mean it's been a tough season so far, and especially with all of the big hitters, none of them really performing apart from Bruno. But like Bruno started off at what 10.5,
Yeah.
so Yeah, it's been one of those seasons where people that are picking players because they play for their team and stuff like that, they're actually picking up more points. They were picking up more points at the start of the season, but now I think now we've hit really into chip season, and the people were taking it a bit more seriously and um, looking to like how we have in the past couple of weeks on the pod. We've been looking at the double game weeks and the potential of where we could uh, like the roadmap ahead, so to speak. That's been the big phrase in the last couple of days in the UK.
Yeah,
And I think we've pretty much worked our way out so that we can get ourselves to game week 30 with the best rank possible.
that's it. Well, part of that is planning, and that moves us on to our first hot topic, which is Spurs assets, whether or not to plan to get them or plan not to get them. And Rob, you did some research on this. So what did you find? But actually, before you start, we've got a question from David Strom, who asked a question about a Spurs asset, and he asked Bale, madness or genius move? I'll leave that up to you to answer,
Well,
mate.
should we try and answer it in the next sort of 5 minutes or so whilst we go over Spurs? So, I mean, the stats for Spurs, especially in the last like 5 or 6 games, since pretty much since mid January. I mean, they've only won twice in their last 8 in all competitions, which is it's shocking form considering. Yeah, one of those games was Wolfsburg in the Europa, and then before that it was West Brom at the beginning of February. But since then, I mean, they've they've played City in that time. They played Everton. They've played Chelsea. They've played Liverpool. Um, and it's, I mean, the Liverpool game, they'd have been kicking themselves because look how Liverpool have done since, been all over the shop. Um, but I mean, it's this reliance they have on the two up top, Kane and Son, and we've seen Kane. He's been back for. Well, he started against City last week. He played a bit against Everton in the League Cup in the midweek before. He was rested in the Europa League, um, probably because they had to rush him back from the injury, and then he played again against West Ham at the weekend. And in my opinion, he was probably one of the best players on the pitch for Spurs. But everyone else around him just lacked any movement or anything that. I mean, with Harry Kane now, like at the start of the season, he was dropping into those deep pockets. You had uh, the wide forwards like Son, and whether it be Mora or Lamella, um, going past him and exploiting the space that Kane's pulling the defenders out from. And you're just not getting that. Those runs, all the defenders aren't going with him anymore, and the defensive midfielders are picking him up more. But yeah, there just wasn't an energy to Spurs that we had seen before. So at the start of the season, especially. So it's whether they've maybe burnt out. The confidence is a bit shot. The run they're on, they can't be confident. Um, it's a strange one. Um, I mean, I'm confident of Kane at the moment. I mean, against West Ham, he created a lot of opportunities and was part of a lot of moves. He had a fair few shots on goal as well. I'm just bringing up the stats for him. And on another day, with a West Ham team that, with a Spurs team that's confident, Kane hauls.
Yeah,
like he goes absolutely crazy. Because it was one of those days where, yeah, he could have had 2 goals and an assist, or 2 goals and 2 assists, or something like that, but he just didn't have the help around him. Um, so I'm actually still confident with sticking with Kane. My concern at the moment is Heung-min Son just wasn't involved at all really throughout the game. Did
he hasn't been the last few games, to be
hmm,
honest. He was synonymous, like
synonymous.
literally synonymous. Like he didn't have a shot on target the whole game.
Hmm. And
Like,
I mean, when Kane wasn't there a few weeks ago, you thought, well, maybe it's because he hasn't got his sidekick, his wingman, there to give him that supply that he gets. But he wasn't moving for it. Like there was just
Tottenham came to life when a Welshman came on,
yes.
Gareth Bale.
Now this is interesting because I've got a funny feeling he starts at the weekend. Um, I think Mourinho's going to be starting to the he's going to be getting desperate, and he seems like the type of person that if he starts Bale and it goes wrong, at least he can go, see, look, I told you so. Because the fans are saying, look, Bale, look, because he looked good in Europa League and he looked good in the second half. He was trying to make things happen, and him and Kane. Um, I mean, they almost had success on a couple of occasions. There was one that Fabianski made a good save, and then Bale hit the bar as well, didn't he?
Mhm.
Um,
Smashed the bar, didn't just hit the bar. It was a fucking rocket of a shot. I thought that
uh,
was going straight in.
yeah. Oh, if it went in, like it, it's up there with one of. It's probably not up there with who's it for now?
Lanzini's,
Oh, Lanzini, wasn't it
Lanzini's.
at the start of the season? But it's up there, sort of in the top 10 of the season. It would have been an absolute rocket
Yeah,
into the top of the net. Um, but yeah, with Gareth Bale, I do think that if because the confidence is there, Mourinho's got to change something, and Bale looked sharp, he looked fit, and he looked up for it, and he looked up for the challenge. I've got a feeling Mourinho throws him in and goes, right, well, you like show me that prove me wrong.
yeah.
Um, because I don't think he was a Mourinho signing. I think it was a Daniel Levy signing to um, sort of please the fans a bit. Um, yeah, it'd be interesting, but like my advice with Spurs, I think, is not to jump on them now. Like get Kane. I think like we'll discuss the triple captaincy options shortly, but have Son, Bale at the top of the watch list, and maybe Reguilon as well, because he came on and I mean he was brought off at half time, probably to sort of change the it was maybe a little bit tactical and a little bit he's just back from injury. Um, so yeah, Reguilon's another one. Like keep an eye on them for the next 2 game weeks, and then game week 29 could be the time to bring them in, especially if you see Spurs like have a look at over the next couple of weeks. They've got Palace, so they've got Burnley and Fulham. So you've got 2 games to watch them there. If they smash their way through that, then you could go right. I'm going to bring Son in against Palace at home. Palace looked awful last night. I don't know how they won. Um,
Yeah, that was one of the maddest games of football I've ever seen,
they had two touches in the box and scored.
and scored from both. Yeah, it's mad.
um, I mean, they're both great goals though. um, and then they've got Arsenal. Arsenal could be another one if they beat Arsenal. That shows they're going in the right direction, especially at the Emirates. Then they've got Villa, who have been awful defensively. Again, if they're pulling out results in those next uh, 2-3 games, well, 3 or 5 games if you include the 2 at the weekend coming up, then like Newcastle um, against United the other night, just like, they they're very, very one man at the moment. Without Wilson there, everything just goes at St. Maximin. So if they can isolate St. Maximin against Newcastle, then Spurs will walk the floor of them because they're not up for it defensively.
So, do you think it's only worth for this week? Because people will be wanting to bring in Spurs assets for this week for the double game week, the plum fixtures, Burnley and Fulham. Are you saying just Kane at the moment is worth
Yeah,
bringing in?
yeah. I mean, if you're bringing in Son, you're probably moving out either Salah or Bruno, or some might be moving out Grealish. I mean, Grealish to Son, I'd it's like a 50-50 for me, whether depends on the plan moving forward. I think I'd do Grealish to Son if I had the money there, if I've already got Kane. Um, but yeah, like you've got to think who you're going to be bringing out. You're going to be bringing out Bruno, which I just won't do now. Like he could he could get a goal against Chelsea. He could go mental against Palace. Like even if he just goes mental against Palace, you don't care about the Chelsea game. Same with Salah. He could go crazy against Sheffield United. Um, and I mean, he could potentially pop up against Chelsea as well. So I wouldn't be selling Salah. And then there's not many other midfielders there that you'd want to be taking out this week as well. Like if you own
So,
Madison or Barnes Madison maybe, but you might not have the money to get to Son. Barnes, you're not going to take out at the moment.
yeah. So, in order to answer David Strum's question, Bale, madness or genius? Maybe you say madness then, yeah.
It's madness, but I really wanted to make the move just so that, like, we've got our group chat with David, and if Bale goes crazy in in game
It'll be
week
popping.
26, then yeah, it'll be party time in the group chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a madness.
So before we move on to our next hot topic, is there anything else that you want to cover on Spurs then, Rob?
Yeah, it's just not much to go by. Like other than the three or four that we spoke about, like if you want to get a defensive asset, like we said last week when we had James on, Lloris is the only one. In the last 6 or 7 games, they've not played the same back four in midfield. They haven't played the same midfield combinations. Um, like in my draft team, like we had a draft last week. For now until the end of the season, I picked Dombele as a like I've got Kane in, but I've bought Dombele as a gamble, and then this afternoon looking at their lineups, it's like even he's not locked into the team.
Yeah.
And he was putting in some big performances before Christmas. So yeah, it's just no one really, no one. Like even like Doherty looks like he's back on his way out in the summer. So yeah, it's tough and it's disappointing because their form has dropped at the worst time possible for FPL managers.
Yeah.
Because if we had the Sun and the Kane that was like smashing it at the beginning of the season, now if we had that form now, there would not be a doubt in anyone's mind in triple captaining either one of them this week, and you'd already have both of them in your teams. We wouldn't be talking about, or do I transfer one or the other or both? You'd have them hit there. So yeah, that's
Okay.
that's that's Spurs.
Spurs. Right. So let's move on to our main hot topic this week. This week, a lot of people are using their chips. Some are wildcarding, some are bench boosting, and some are triple captaining, and probably a tiny portion are free hitting. Um, but the main thing to talk about today is the triple captaincy because that's something that we're both on, and I know a lot of people in the community are talking about. Not just triple captaincy, but captaincy anyway. Because if you're going to be triple captaining, you'd be captaining them anyway. So I thought, okay, fine, let's have a look at some data that sits around the triple captaincies, some stats that will help us work out who the best person is. And in reality, this week, you could there's probably about 8 to 10 decent captaincy options. So we've got 6 that we're going to cover today in some detail. Rob, you're going to bring up some. There we go. We've got some stats on the screen, and I'll talk you through them for the podcasters. So the 6 main people that I think are the best options are Kane, Son, Bruno, Salah, DCL, and Gundogan. And to be honest, you could probably add Watkins in there as an option, or Cancelo potentially as an option. Barnes, Vardy, Madison, they're all decent options, to be honest with you. Differentials, but decent options. But these, I think, are the top 6 for me. So we've got some stats on the screen, and what I'm going to do is I'll talk you through them 2 by 2, like Noah's Ark. Right. So first we've got Kane and Son. So Tottenham have got on paper 2 good fixtures, Burnley and Fulham. And later on, I'm going to talk you through on Sham stats. I've done some XG conceded data on some of the teams that these 6 are facing, and this will also help you in deciding what are the best options to go for. But for now, we'll just talk about the players individually. So Kane in this is the last 4 starts. So this is their last 4 starts. Obviously, Kane played the last 3 and then got injured for a couple of weeks. So this is the last 4 games that he played. He's he's had 2 big chances with an XGI expected of 1.31. So XGI expected is a combination of XG and XA together. He's had 1 goal in that time and an XG non-penalty of 0.34. 4 chances created, 0 assists, 13 shots, which is second highest amongst these 6 players. 9 shots in the box, which is highest amongst these 6 players. 4 shots on target, which is 35 minutes per goal attempt in the box, again highest of the 6. Overall, he's got 12 points in those 4 games, last 4 matches. And in the reverse fixtures against Burnley and Fulham, he scored 13 points. And I got this data from Fantasy Football Hub, so credit them for the data. They have a model that basically shows predicted points, and he's predicted to score 11.1 points this game week, which is second highest out of these 6. On the face of it, Rob, what do you think of those stats for Kane? To me, they seem quite low from an XG and big chances volume. But, we've always said, when I say we, FPL managers, if Kane's shooting, he will get goals. And he's had 13 shots in the last 4, which is approximately 3 a game. But 4 shots on target, so a shot on target a game. What do you think of Kane?
These stats, it concerns me a little bit as someone that is really, really thinking about triple captaining him this week. It's interesting to see that it is so low, and I think, like we've just discussed about the confidence of the team. These games would have been West Ham. Who would they have played in this time? West Ham, City, West Brom, and Liverpool, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's actually really disappointing. The algorithm from my planner has Kane at 14.7 points this week, so it's not actually that far off of what they've got there for the predicted points. So it's an interesting one, but then it's Harry Kane.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Like, we know that he can just pop off at any time.
That's the thing is with Kane, so in the reverse fixtures, he scored 13 points. And if he got 13 points in these 2 games, I think you'd be quite happy, right? I'd be happy with a triple captaincy or a captaincy of 13 points in 2,
Yeah,
and really, For Kane, all he needs is a goal in one game and an assist in another, and because we know that he hogs the bonus generally, that's 12 to 13 points there, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, generally from your triple captain, you want two returns, don't you? Like,
Yeah.
but if it's a forward, you generally want two goals. Um, so yeah, it's a tricky one.
Right, let's move on to his counterpart, Son. So Son, in the last four games he's played, has had one big chance, an XGI expected of 0.88, one goal, an XG non-penalty of 0.65, seven chances created, which is second highest out of the six players. No assists, seven shots, three of the shots in the box, four shots on target, so equal to Kane on shots on target. But minutes per goal attempt in the box is 119.7, which is the highest amongst these six, which is the highest, not a good thing in this particular stat. He scored 16 points in the last four games, and again in the reverse fixture, he scored 13 points, which included an 11 pointer and a 2-pointer. His predicted points is 10.2. Me personally, I don't think Son is an option. I don't think he's a good option. He is an option. If the second fixture was Southampton against Fulham, I would have said he would have been a much better option. But I think you're right. I don't have that much faith in Spurs at the moment. I still am considering Kane though as my triple captaincy option, because based on these stats, I wouldn't. So if there were no names above this, and I was just looking purely on the stats, I would not be picking Kane or Son. Yeah, these two stats don't, I guess, fill me with confidence. Um, but it's Harry Kane, and that's what kind of scares me about it. But there are other options, as we will talk about now. So the next one is Bruno. So Bruno is facing Chelsea and Palace. Um, in the last four game weeks, he has trumped the stats.
Hmm.
So he's had two big chances, an XGI expected of 3.39, second highest out of the six players, four goals, which is top, but an XG non-penalty of 0.69. So considering he's had four goals, his XG non-pen is 0.69, which basically shows you it's all about penalties for Bruno. Um, he's created 11 chances, which is the highest out of these six, three assists, again highest, and 15 shots, again highest. Five shots in the box with eight shots in target, eight shots being the highest out of the six, 72 minutes per goal attempt in the box, and 45 points over the last 4 weeks. Compare that to Son and Kane with 12 and 16, respectively. Um, However, this is the thing that scares me, and I do look at this stat, but it could also mean nothing. His reverse fixture points were five. So against Palace and Chelsea, lot this season in the reverse fixture, he only scored 5 points. Is that maybe because of the way that Bruno plays against a setup of Chelsea and Palace? What do you think, Rob? You're the Man United fan here.
That Palace game, we were awful. That was our first game of the season, and it was our pre-season game because we hadn't had any warm-up games. Or we'd had one. We'd played. I think we played against Villa or Burnley behind closed doors as like a pre-season friendly. Um, so yeah, the Palace game I'm ignoring slightly, but yeah, I mean, and the problem then is um, the Chelsea performance. But again, against the top sides this year, we've been kind of different. Like in the past couple of years, we've always stepped it up against the top sides, like against Chelsea, against City, maybe not against Liverpool. Um, but yeah, Chelsea last year we beat them 4-0 and 2-0. and we beat like we I think we played them 4 or 5 times last year, and we only lost to them in the FA Cup. Um, but yeah, I mean, with how Palace have been playing recently, and we touched upon it like 10 minutes ago, and like how awful they were last night against Brighton, despite somehow winning. Um, yeah, I'd be looking at Bruno coming out with another haul against Palace this week. I don't think we can take much from that reverse fixture. Um, but I mean Chelsea, they're still an unknown.
Yeah.
They
Does Bruno blank 2 games in a row? That's the thing, and I
no.
don't think he's done that this year, right? I mean, I don't know. I am guessing, but
Um, who have
has he blanked 2 game weeks in a row?
we've
I'd be
had?
very surprised if he did.
No, we had West Brom. No, he scored against West Brom. Um,
So he blanked game week 6 and game week 7, and then game week 12 and 13, game week 18 and 19, game week 21 at 20 and 21. So he has banked a few times,
yeah,
um,
well, he
2 game weeks in
blanked.
a row.
Yeah, he blanked against um, Arsenal and Sheffield United. That was the last time he
Yeah.
blanked. So what, 4 or 5 games ago, 6 games ago. And since then, we've seen him hauled against Southampton. Well, everyone hauled against Southampton that day. Um, we saw his performance against Everton was brilliant, and he got like that great goal against Everton. Um, West Brom, he came up with the goal. Should have had an assist or two near the end as well. Um, yeah, and against Newcastle, comes up with the goal as well. Um, yeah, I'd expect him to come out of those 2 games with at least the goal and well, at least the goal and at least 2 assists. I think,
Then we should be triple captaining him, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. The
Like,
next option
because
is
what's that? That's going to be what, 15 points, um, plus probably a couple of BPS in there. So let's say 17/18 points.
yeah. I will
We could,
reveal my kind of order afterwards. What I think. Anyway, after I've gone through 6, but the next option is Salah. An FPL favourite, currently not a favourite, but in history past, with Sheffield United and Chelsea. So over the last 4 game weeks, Salah has had 3 big chances, an XGI of 2.73, 2 goals, which is second highest out of these 6, an XG non-penalty of 1.58, 2 chances created, no assists, 10 shots, 8 shots in the box, 4 shots on target, 45 minutes per goal attempt in the box, 18 points over the last 4 weeks. And in the reverse fixture, he scored 5 points. He is predicted to score the highest out of these 6, 12.5 points. Um, I think Salah is a good option, if not just for that Sheffield United game. Um, the only problem is we don't know, with Liverpool, they have a tendency to rest players. I would say Kane and Son are probably not going to be rested in their games. I'd be surprised. Bruno is a potential and possibility, and Salah is a potential as well.
I think the only thing with Liverpool and the rotation at the moment, like they've got themselves in the
in a race for top 4, right?
well, and they're slowly dropping out of the race for the top 4. Um,
Yeah,
and with the injuries they've got, and I think this is more detriment to Salah than helps him. Because yeah, although he won't get rotated, I think like the most recent injury to Henderson, I think is a very very big injury for them because yeah, it's the way that they've suffered this year. I think is due to not having the shape both at the back and in the midfield. Where they've missed Van Dijk's, they've had to slot Fabinho or Henderson into the back four because he doesn't trust the youngsters to come in. And now with Kabak, he doesn't look that good either.
Kabak isn't that good at Kabak, right?
Kabak,
The back. I
Kabak
tried to
and
put
the
that
back.
on there.
That's
Yeah.
anyway. Moving on. Yeah, I think that whole shape at the back for them.
Kabak, yeah.
Yeah, at Kabak, um, it's affecting them up front, and they're not. They haven't got that fluidity that we've seen from them. I mean, yeah, Thiago hasn't been doing what people were expecting him to do and really tick things over in the midfield and get the ball moving quickly. He's actually moving the ball really slowly around, and Liverpool rely on the ball being moved around quickly. Where get the opposition moving around and creating those spaces for the likes of Trent and Robbo down the flanks to cause some damage and get the ball into Mane, Salah, Firmino to get their goals. And that I think it's all stemming down from that midfield, like the problems they're having in the midfield. And after chatting to a few Liverpool fans, like also whilst winding them up, that's been the general consensus of why things have gone wrong for them this season. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just unlucky due to injuries, and that's probably why I wouldn't. I'm not looking at Salah as my triple captain this week, and I'm only keeping him because this week because there's other moves that I prefer to make, and there's no one that I'd want to bring. Like if there wasn't the blank in 3-4 game weeks time, I'd probably do Salah to Barnes. Like if I didn't have anything to think about for the future, I'd probably make that move now because of Leicester's double and um, yeah, with how Barnes played at the weekend. Um, and yeah, I think Salah's just doesn't do it for me at the moment. None of the Liverpool assets really do.
Okay, well, let's look at the next option, which is DCL. Um, and Everton have West Brom and Southampton, two very good fixtures. And after seeing Southampton tonight lose 3-0 to Leeds, fills me with even more confidence on this pick. So over the last 4 weeks, DCL has had 4 big chances, which is second highest out of these 6 options, with an XGI of 2.04. He's had 2 goals and an XG non-penalty of 1.71. He's created 2 chances, had 0 assists and 7 shots.
We had an
Uh,
FPL assist.
an FP, did he have an FPL assist?
Yeah, for the penalty.
Oh yeah, for the penalty, yes, he
Yeah,
did. Um, 7 shots with 6 shots in the box, 7 shots on target. Minutes per goal attempt is 49.7. So he's had 24 points over the last 4 weeks, and in the reverse fixture, he scored 18 points. Can you remember where that 18 points came from, Rob? Split over.
Pardon?
Split over. So he played West Brom and Southampton. Where did those 18 points come from? Do you remember?
Was it West Brom?
Yeah, so he scored a hat trick against West
Yeah,
Brom. I think it was the first game of the season,
yeah, it was
second
right
game
at
of
the
the season.
start. Yeah, it was
It
before anyone
was.
had even thought about bringing him into their teams.
Yeah.
It was just
His predicted points is 9.3. As you can see, DCL from so for those that are on YouTube, as you can see, DCL is scores. Has got quite a few yellows and one green here, which indicates that he's a good captaincy option out of the 6. I'm going to show some stats next after we've talked through captaincy about West Brom and Southampton and kind of their XG conceded and the big chances conceded. Their defense out of all the teams that these six options are facing, I think these two defense are the worst. Which is one of the main reasons that I'm thinking them as an option. The only thing that concerns me about DCL, actually two things that concern me. Will Ancelotti be managing his fitness because he's just come back? He didn't start against Liverpool. Will he start him twice? I think there's 3 days gap between the two fixtures. And the other thing is his shot volume. So he's had 7 shots, and you compare that to everyone else. The lowest alongside Son. The lowest here, 15, 10, 13, 10, and he's got 7. 6 shots in the box is also quite low, but out of the 7 shots, he's had 7 on target. So that kind of fills me with a bit of confidence there, which is
Yeah,
second.
yeah. If he's shooting, he's testing the keeper at least.
That's it. So what do you think for DCL, Rob?
I mean, in the last couple of days, I've been like, I think before I saw Kane versus West Ham, I was 100% looking at Kane. And I mean, my concerns that I brought up about the players around Kane, probably holding him back now. And then, yeah, looking at DCL and some of these stats, and then looking at Southampton and West Brom, like West Brom away from home, especially, like according to like my XG tables, they're 18th. Like one of the worst teams away from home. They are the worst team at home. And then with Southampton, like they give away 15, like their expected goals conceded out of their 13 games at home is 15. So it's over a goal a game. And we've seen how, especially like this evening against Leeds, how like players like Richarlison, like if he comes up against Bednarek at the weekend, like Southampton are in a world of trouble, because if Richarlison's going to skip past Bednarek, same with Digne or Dean, and it just works in DCL's favour. I think he's going to get a lot of chances against Southampton. West Brom, I think, will be the trickier game out of the two, because I think West Brom are fighting for their lives, but they've got that energy to deal with Everton's attack and their pace. I think it'll be more like players like James that come into play against West Brom to try and unlock the defence. But Southampton, I think they could just really punish them with power and pace. DCL's like, he's slowly made his way to the top of my list this week. But
Well, the next
it's whether I'm confident on the gamble, because it is a gamble, because so many will be on Kane and Bruno this week. So it's a gamble, but if it pays off and he outscores Kane and Bruno, it's a master move, really, isn't it?
Well, the next option is from the team that are currently the best defense, the best attack in the country, and that is Gundogan. Now, from Man City, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. You could add Sterling in here, and you could have had KDB as well. But Gundogan is coming up with the best from a stats point of view from City. Now he trumps everyone else on nearly everything, Rob. So over the last 4 weeks, he's had five big chances created. Five big chances, which is highest out of the six. He's had an XGI of 4.25, again the highest. 4 goals, the highest. XG non-pen 2.61, the highest. 6 chances created, 1 assist, 10 shots, 9 shots in the box, which is again the highest. 5 shots on target, 37.7 minutes per goal attempt in the box, and 43 points over the last 4 weeks. In the reverse fixture, he got 2 points, but that was at the beginning of the season. I wouldn't take much notice of that at all because we know how Gundogan has changed. And his predicted points is 8.4. And again, I wouldn't take too much notice of that because it's based on historical data over the season. But, if you're just looking at the last, 6 weeks, wow, he's a no-brainer, really. But the biggest concern is, does he start? With Pep Roulette, they're playing every twice a week now for the next few weeks. Does he play 2 games? That is the big question, right? And really, if he's not going to be playing 2 games, I don't know if you want him as an option. But then saying that, last double game week, he got 19 points against Tottenham in 1 game. He didn't play the second game, and he was the best option for captaincy that week. What do you think, Rob?
He's not going to do anything against West Ham, is he?
Oh, so this moves me on to my second point that I was going to say, and this we can clip and we can post it when this happens. I'm more than happy to do that. I think there will be an upset. I don't know if we'll win, but I don't think we will lose against Man City.
Will you score?
Um,
Because they've only conceded once in the last 8 or 9, and that was
my gut
Richarlison's
tells me,
5.
yeah, my gut tells me, and this is madness. My gut tells me we'll win 1-0.
Lingardinho special.
Yeah, I genuinely, maybe it's just me looking for it with claret and blue sunglasses, but I think we win 1-0.
I hope you do, because if you do, and then we go and beat Chelsea on Sunday, that's if you
Oh,
beat
mate,
them Saturday and
title
we beat them
hopes are,
Sunday.
title hopes are gone for everyone, so don't even be thinking
Oh
about
no,
that.
there's only 7. It's only 7 points then, and then we play them next week. We play them, and then that could then bring it down to 4 points. If it,
I
I
can
don't
see
know.
us beating them, not you.
All right,
But yeah, look, 2 good fixtures against Wolves and West Ham.
they haven't beaten
Um,
us. Oh no, they beat us in the League Cup. I was going to say they haven't beaten us in ages, but yeah, they beat us in the League Cup.
um, Wolves and West Ham, you know, I don't know. It's difficult. A lot of people were saying that those look like 1-2-0 fixtures um, for each one. The stats say that Gundogan is going to haul. I don't know. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah,
Is he an
my
option?
my concern mainly is the rotation, especially
Yeah.
with so City they play in Europe tomorrow night or tonight for everyone that's listening. Then they play West Ham. Then they play midweek against Wolves. Then they play United. Then they've got another European game. Now players like Gundogan, KDB, I think they'll get picked against West Ham, and then they might get rested against Wolves. Um, it's because then the United game is a big one. I don't think Pep's concerned too much about the Wolves game. He can put out a second string and they'll get the result. It also concerns me with even the defence. Like I've got Diaz and Stones. You've got Cancelo and Diaz, haven't you? Oh no, Cancelo and
Cancelo
Stones.
and Stones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think any of them start both games. Um, Pep's going to be managing the minutes, and especially in defence, he's got so many options there, like that can play in the middle of the defence, in the fullback positions, in midfield. He's got so many options. Like I saw a stat the other day. Bernardo Silva's played like almost every minute of every game since before Christmas.
Bloody
So
hell.
he's I think Bernardo Silva is not going to start in the next couple of weeks, couple of games. Um, with KDB back, they've got that flexibility now with between KDB, Gundogan, and Foden to sort of move them around. Yeah, like and they know that any of those like three or four can all play in each other, like the positions that they all specialise in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably like yeah, you'd have him in your team because yeah, you could haul one game, and even if he is benched, like Pep's the sort of person that he'll bench like a big player, but then give him a run out for 15 minutes. Or if the unthinkable happens and they're behind, then like if say they're 1-0 down to Wolves with half an hour to go, and KDB, Gundogan, Foden all sitting on the bench, everyone comes on. Like he just chucks them all on with half an hour to go, and they win 6-1. Like, and we've seen it happen in the past with City, and yeah, so there's nothing to say that yeah he's not a good option apart from the fact that it's highly unlikely he'll start both games. Like,
Yeah. So I guess we've gone through six options now. What does this tell us? So I've gone through all the stats. We've gone through each player. What is kind of my conclusion? So my personal conclusion, I'll sum it up each of kind of different categories. So if you're willing to ride the Pep roulette, then I think the best option is Gundogan based on the stats. That's what the stats are telling us. The stats are saying Gundogan is the best option. Um, Bruno is the second best option based on the stats, and the third best option is DCL. You've then got Salah and Kane, followed by Son. So, in summary, I think it depends how you look at stats. It depends whether how you play the game. Is it based on gut feel? Is it based on stats? Is it based on a combination? Um, Someone like James from Planet FPL, he believes in Kane. I know that he's going with Kane this week because his kind of philosophy is: look, Kane can score in any game. They are a defensively better, Burnley and Fulham. But if you go with one goal in each game, that's 18 points, including bonus. Triple captaincy, it's 54 points. He would be happy with that. I think at the moment I'm leaning towards Bruno and DCL. Those are kind of the two that I'm thinking, but I could be swayed towards Kane as well. I'm not really sure. The only thing that puts me off Bruno is in his reverse fixtures. He only got 5 points. DCL is a bit of FOMO for me because, like you mentioned earlier, Rob, um, everyone's going to be going for Kane and Bruno. Their effective ownership, I think, will be 150 plus each. I think both of their effective ownership will be 150 plus each because you've got to include the triple captaincy, right? As well, a lot of people will be on 300% ownership, obviously with the triple captaincy. So if you go DCL and one of those two hauls or both of them haul, you're in the shit.
hmm.
Like you even though you've got both of them in your team, you haven't made any points basically. Um, so yeah, that's basically a summary for me. I think if you want to go safe, you go Bruno or Kane. You want to take a gamble, you go DCL or Gundogan. I personally am not looking at Son or Salah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd definitely agree with you there. I mean, personally, I'm thinking of taking the gamble on DCL. I mean, looking at the stats and you like explaining through them, I'm probably swaying more now Bruno over Kane, just because. And I've never in my FPL life been able to triple captain a Man United player, which um, and I may never get the opportunity again, or I'll get to triple captain Sancho next season,
Yeah.
or Haaland next season. But yeah, it's I think I need to decide in the next 2 or 3 days, like, do I want to take that gamble, or do I want to take the gamble on DCL now, or do I take the gamble when I wildcard later on and towards the end of the season? I think that will be what sort of sways it in how I want to attack with my mini leagues that I'm in. But yeah, I think if I was to rank top three right now, it'll be Bruno, then Kane, then DCL.
Um, can you bring up the stat of the team defensive data? Because I think this would be a good time to bring up one of the stats. Yeah. So, what you've got here. So this is what I was going to talk about on Sham Stats, which is the team defensive data. So what I've done is split them up into the different games that the triple captaincy options are playing against. So first you've got Fulham and Burnley. They are Spurs' opponents. So over the last 4 game weeks, so 22 to 25, Fulham have an XGC of 4.84, which is a goals conceded, X goals conceded. Big chances conceded is 8, and goals conceded is 3. So their placing for big chances is 7th worst, right? Their placing for XGC is 13th worst. Burnley have conceded 6 big chances, an XGC of 4.74, and conceded 4 goals. They are 11th worst and 14th worst for XGC. Then move on to Chelsea and Palace. So Chelsea have only conceded 3 big chances with an XGC of 2.66 and only conceded 2 goals. So they are 19th worst or second best in the league for both big chances and big chances conceded. Palace have conceded 11 big chances, an XGC of 7.75, third worst in the league. So if you combine the two together, and this is kind of the way that I was looking at it. So if you combine Fulham and Burnley, they've got they've conceded 7 goals over the last 4 games, conceded 14 big chances. Chelsea and Palace have conceded 14 as well. So Chelsea and Palace's game is against Man United. Fulham and Burnley is against Spurs. 14 versus 14. It's difficult, but that's kind of the best way to look at it, right? Palace's defense is the third worst in the league. And then you look at West Brom and Southampton. So this is what I was saying about DCL, that it's a gamble, but on paper, it looks like a good gamble. So they are facing West Brom and Southampton. Over the last 4 game weeks, combined, they have conceded 18 big chances. West Brom 6 and Southampton 12. That does include the 9-0 to Southampton. So that to United. So that isn't a bit of an anomaly. They've conceded 20 goals between the two of them. Southampton's defence is the second worst in the league, and West Brom's is the 11th. So that DCL option is there, right?
It, doesn't it?
It does strengthen it. And then you move on to Sheffield United, who again are the second worst in the league. They've conceded 7 goals and 11 big chances conceded. Do you know who the worst is, Rob?
In the last how many games?
4 game weeks.
The last 4 game weeks.
Without looking.
Worst for goals conceded. No, for big
No,
chances.
big chances conceded.
Oh, don't know. It's going to be someone stupid. I bet it's like United.
Nope.
uh, I don't know. No, complete
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Liverpool.
It makes sense. Like they have
Yep.
been. That's how horrific they've been, really.
Yeah, big chances conceded.
Like,
So that data kind of shows us that, the way that I'm doing it is I'm grouping them up. So West Brom and Southampton have got 18 big chances conceded between the two. And if you pair that up with everyone else has got around 14. So when I say pair them up, the double game week fixtures that the 6 that I highlighted are facing, they've all got, between 13 and 14 between them. West Brom and Southampton have got 18. So I think DCL is a very good option. It just means whether or not you want to take that risk, right? So yeah. Anything else on triple captaincy?
no. So yeah, it's really interesting to see and hear all the stats. Yeah, laid out like that because it does. I mean, although it has definitely swayed me more to uh, Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, I think yeah, like we said a couple of minutes ago, like the only thing that is going to sway me to probably more Bruno than Kane is that like FOMO. Like if Bruno goes off, I'm fucked. Like
Yeah,
you, I think yeah, with the amount of triple captaincies out there, like if he goes off, and it looks like it would be Palace that's the one. Um, yeah, you're absolutely you're in the mud, so to speak.
yeah.
Um,
We do have a couple of questions on triple captaincy. So FF Dempsey at Dempsey FPL asks, Kane and Bruno are the obvious triple captaincy choices for many. Who else is worth a punt for 26 or beyond? So for me, obviously we've spoken about DCL. I think Watkins is an outside chance. They've got Leeds and Sheffield United. Um, Anyone else for you
um,
worth a punt for 26 and beyond? It depends how you want to play the game. Triple captaincy isn't something that I would, in a massive double game week, want to punt on. I think I'd want to have something, to back up,
hmm.
um, statistically,
I think
me personally.
the thing that gives Kane the backup as well is the blank 29 fixture, um,
Yeah,
followed by the good fixture in 30. That kind of backs up the moving to Kane, but it's so yeah, you'd I think if you haven't got Kane, you'd be bringing him in this week no matter what, and um, but it's whether you want to then put that triple captaincy on him for this week when we know that when we've seen how bad the form is for Spurs and the better options that are out there in Bruno, DCL. Um, yeah, do you want to take that gamble on him? But saying that, his like he can pop off at any moment, and his um, yeah, his ownership's going to be um, absolutely sky high this week. Um, yeah, I don't think you'd want to gamble on anyone else as a triple captaincy, but there are other players to gamble on as just a move to bring in
Yeah.
this week. And like you said, Watkins is one of them because we've got he's got Wolves, he's got Leeds and Sheffield United. Then he's got Wolves. Then he's got Newcastle, and that Newcastle fixture in 28 could turn into a double as well. We're not sure yet. We're hoping it would be announced this time next week. So he could have a dub, like Watkins, the Villa assets could potentially in the next 4 weeks have 6 games. 4 game weeks have 6 games, which means like you're gonna like most are gonna be moving off Grealish. Personally, I'm waiting till we hear some news on him. Because if he's back for 29, then I think I hold. Or back for 28, then I think I hold. If not, if I don't hear anything, which I think is more likely the way Dean Smith has been in the last 48 hours, he doesn't sound like he's going to be giving us any information before the 26th deadline. So I'll probably be moving Grealish to another Villa asset. But yeah, apart from Villa and Spurs, I wouldn't be bringing in anyone else to gamble unless you're on the free hit in 29. Then Vardy.
Leicester, but yeah. So that actually moves us on to our next section of Sham Stats. So the second part, which is some Leicester assets. So FPL Egan asks, is Barnes a legitimate captaincy option? So FPL Egan, here you go. Here's some options with regards to Barnes versus Maddison versus Vardy. So I've got some stats here for you. Um, so these are from game weeks 22 for 25 for Barnes and Maddison, but for Vardy, obviously he's been injured. So I did 24, 25 and double game week 19, which was the last game week that he was fit for, which I thought was fairer to do it that way. So over those 4 weeks, Barnes has had 29 points, the same as Maddison, 29 points, and Vardy's had 15 points. Barnes has had 2 goals, same as Maddison, and Vardy's had 1. Barnes and Maddison both got two assists, with Vardy's 1. XG wise, Vardy has had an XG of 2.57 compared to Barnes of 1.4 and Maddison of 1.18. In terms of big chances, Vardy's had 5 big chances, 2 for Barnes, none for Maddison. Shots in the box, 16 for Vardy, 9 for Barnes, and 3 for Maddison. But the interesting thing here is that Maddison has had 7 shots on target, which is the highest out of them. He likes shooting outside of the box, and he's usually on target. He's had 14 shots and only 3 in the box. It's madness. Vardy's had 6 shots on target and Barnes 4. In terms of total volume of shots, Vardy 16, Maddison 14, and Barnes 11. Touches in the box, Vardy's had the most with 23, Barnes 17, and Maddison 11. In terms of like creativity, big chances created, as you can imagine, Maddison sits top there with 3, Vardy with 1, Barnes 0, and an XA of 1.68 for Maddison, 0.85 for Vardy, and 0.59 for Barnes. Then we look at price tags in Vardy's 10.1 versus Maddison and Barnes 7.3 and 6.9. So it's difficult because over the last 4 game weeks, well, you know, Barnes and Maddison without Vardy's been doing quite well, right, overall. But then you look at the big chances of Vardy of 5. But the thing is, I don't think you can really have Vardy and Kane in your team, right? So it's to me, it's Vardy or Kane. If you do want to have Vardy and Kane, then you probably want to lose Salah or Bruno, because I don't think you can have all four of them the way that a lot of teams are at the moment. In terms of their fixtures, they have who have Leicester got this week? They've got Burnley and Arsenal, right? So again, two defenses that are looking a lot better over the last 4 game weeks. To answer FPL Egan's question, is Barnes a legitimate captaincy option? I don't know. I think out of those 6 that I went through earlier, I think they are better personally. Maybe Barnes is a better option than Son. I don't think I put him ahead of the other 5. I think Salah is even a better captaincy option than Barnes. What do you think, Rob?
I mean, the other thing with Vardy is like that one goal that he scored. That was the one against Liverpool, wasn't it? Where Alisson and Kabak
Yeah, yeah,
decided to do some karate and
yeah, yeah,
like so. That's the other thing. Like Vardy's expected goals is 2.57, and he's got one that was just gifted to him. He hasn't. I still think. I think he was rushed back from the injury. I think the fact that Leicester don't have. Like we spoke a few weeks ago about Perez filling in up top for Vardy, and it just didn't work out. Wasn't good enough, and I think they brought Vardy back a bit quicker than they probably originally anticipated. I mean, it shocked a lot of us when he was back in the starting lineup so quickly. We were expecting Vardy to be out until like beginning of April and be back for the end of the season, which I think it just showed that because their results did drop off and they were relying really heavily on Maddison and Barnes in that time that Vardy wasn't playing. That I think Rodgers needed to bring him back quicker, and I think it's meant he's come back slightly off, like worse for wear, as it were. So yeah, those stats for Vardy, it does concern me that he's getting those big chances, but he's not getting the returns from it. Maddison, he's got a flag on him, where he picked up a slight knock at the weekend. Doesn't look like he's out for this weekend, but it is something like a concern moving forward. Like, does he play both games, or does he start one and sit on the bench for the other? But Barnes, I think he's almost undroppable at the moment in the form that he's in. We can see, he's getting the goals. He's outperforming his XG, which is good to see. It means that he's taking his chances. So, yeah, if I didn't have a Grealish problem or a game week 29 problem, I'd be bringing Barnes in, like, no questions asked this week, because the price tag's right, the form's right, the stats are right. Like, everything points towards him, but he doesn't play in 29, so I can't bring him in. But yeah, if you're on that, if you're free hitting in 29, or you're happy to only go with 10 players or whatever, or you've got it all planned out, so you can bring in Barnes this week and still get 9 or 10 players for 29, then yeah, go and do it. But yeah, he's not a captaincy option.
Rob, one thing that I think you should think about, and other people, if they haven't thought about this. So one of the reasons you're saying that you don't want to bring in Barnes is because he doesn't play in 29. So essentially, you would be, you're planning to have 11 players in 29,
10,
the way that it's
10
going.
or 11, yeah, 10 or
10
11.
or 11. Okay. So let's go on the basis that you bring Barnes in. If you bring Barnes in, you'll be down to 9 or 10. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So another way to look at it is the points that Barnes gets in a double game week,
Hmm.
will they outscore one player in the blank game week 29?
Which you should
That's
do.
another way to look at it.
Yeah, but it also,
So if you think, and the other thing to look at is how is Barnes' fixtures over the next 3 weeks? They are good. I think they've got
hmm,
Fulham and Sheffield United,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
uh,
Um, double check what they are.
yeah, Brighton, Sheffield United.
Brighton and Sheffield United. Okay, two decent fixtures. So you're bringing in Barnes for a double game week, two good fixtures, and you're down one player in 29. The another way you can look at it is a -4 worth it for 29 to have, if you don't want to be a player short, a -4 plus that player versus the other player that you're getting for this double game week instead of
I
Barnes.
mean, the
I,
other
I
thing,
personally think it's worth it because I think Barnes can score 8 to 10 points
I
this
mean, the
this
other
week.
thing for me, like personally with my team, is if I want to do, so it'll be Ings to Kane and Grealish to Barnes.
Yeah.
I can't quite afford it, so it's going to cost me
Oh,
four
okay, fair
points to
enough.
do, four points, and a lot of people are
Okay.
going to be in that in that position where they're trying to bring in Kane for an Ings or a Bamford or a who else has everyone got at the moment? It's mainly Danny Ings that they're
Yeah.
because the Southampton double, like you're generally treating it like a single game week more or less. Against
Sheffield United and Man
Sheffield
City, right?
United. Yeah, so it's only Sheffield United you're looking for a return from him, really. Um, so I think, yeah, a lot of people are making that move, and then they'll be moving Grealish out, and I'm only point two off of doing the Grealish to Barnes move as part of that. And I think if I had the right money there to do that as part of my two free transfers, I'd do that. But because it's going to cost me the -4 to do it as well, then yeah, I can't justify that. But I could justify it on a player that doubles and plays in 29 as well.
Yeah,
Um,
fair enough.
so yeah, that's why I'm looking at elsewhere for the week. I mean, yeah, I am planning to take a -4, but it's going to be single game week players for double game week players. My moves are generally going to be Ings to Kane, Grealish to someone looking like Traore at the moment, and Bednarek to Aina from Fulham. And they're the moves that I'm thinking of making because then I've got the right money. It leaves me with a bit in the bank as well, like zero point 0.8 in the bank. But it also moves me in the right direction moving forward. So, and I'm hoping
So yeah,
Aina comes out with another return this week because he's been playing well for Fulham.
he has. Well, that I think is enough on our stats this week. I think we've overloaded
We've
you
gone
guys with
crazy on
stats.
the
Let us know.
stats.
That's it. Let us know how you thought of it. Was it good? Was it not good? Was it too much? We think it kind of brings a different viewpoint rather than just chatting shit, right, Rob? At least we can chat shit with some data, but stuck behind it.
Yeah.
Um, Okie doke. Right, we have some questions to wrap up the pod, Rob. So the first one is from FPL Summers. Should I wildcard to set up for 26 to 29 and beyond? I have no Spurs or Villa currently. Thanks.
Oh, this is an interesting one because this is Matt, who's currently top of the big FPL mini league, which is the mini
Oh,
league that I
wow.
run. So I could say something that could ruin his season. And I know that Alex, who's chasing him at the moment is a listens to the pod every week as well. So um, wildcarding to set up for 26 to 29 and beyond. If you haven't, I think you kind of have to now, but it's a tricky wildcard to do, and it all depends on whether you like if you if you've used your bench boost and your triple captain. We know that Spurs are going to get a double win, 32, very likely. So you're going to be, if you're confident in using your triple captain on Harry Kane in 32, then yeah. But that's I think it's the only double game week now that we're going to see. Like the FA Cup semi-finals and the final won't cause any further doubles because of the semi-finals fall in 32, but there's a free midweek straight after, and the final falls in 37 with a free midweek straight after. So any blanks that it caused will just move into those weeks. So I think now there's only the chance for a couple of double game weeks left, and you're either going to be looking at triple captaining Watkins in 28 or Kane in 32. So should I wildcard? If you're not looking, if you haven't got any other chips to use, and you haven't got any Spurs or Villa, it could be worth doing it now.
I agree. Yeah, I think if
Uh,
you haven't got any Spurs or Villa, or you're not set up well for 29, I think it also depends on if you've got any Leeds assets as well. I think personally, 7 players for 29 might be enough. If you can
hmm,
work towards that with what you have now, including your free transfers, then maybe it's not worth wildcarding. If you can get to 7 or 8, um, without a wild card. I mean, personally, I'm in a similar situation. I have, as it stands, I have 2 Villa, which is Martinez and Grealish, and no Spurs. But I'm bringing in Kane this week, so I'll have 3 between them. Although I'll probably be losing Grealish, so I'll be back down to 2 between them. I'm kind of working towards 7 for 29, and I think if you can do that, that's probably enough.
yeah, I think you'd. The problem is, so you'd have to go with probably have to have 3 Spurs, so that you can cover this double. Um, so yeah, and then you're going to have to go with a couple of Fulham. So you'd probably have to go with like Lookman and Aina, or maybe Areola and one of Lookman and Aina as well. And then it becomes a struggle because then you're going to have to get a couple of Leeds or a couple of West Ham. Like your bench is going to be Leeds and West Ham players, isn't it, this week? So that you can that gives you the most possible. Like if you that gives you 9 blank game week players um, before, and then by 29 you've then got 11. So yeah, you'd have 2 of West Ham or Leeds, and then 1 of West Ham or Leeds, and then 3 Spurs, 3 Fulham. And that gives you the most double
Do you
game
want
week
3
players.
Fulham though? That's the problem.
Yeah, well, Areola, Aina, Lookman,
Yeah.
which also gives you plenty of money to then maybe go with Bruno, Salah, or Bruno, KDB. You could take the gamble on KDB, especially with the double 26, double 27, because you're going to need to have free City, um, and they're the ones that you're probably then going to move one City out in 28 and the other 2 out in 29, which then gives you the struggle in game week 30 and 31.
This is the thing. So that's why I think personally, if you can get to 7 by 29, save the wild card, use it in 31, you'd be better off stretch for the loss 7 game weeks. That's for me personally, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's nice if you can get to 29 with more than 7. It's nice because you've got that opportunity then of really building a great score. And it's also remembering that there's going to be a lot of free hits in 29. Like there's going to be a hell of a lot of free hits in 29, where we're if you don't have those sort of 9 or 10 players, you could really suffer because there's going to be free hits out there that are going to be going free West Ham, free Spurs, um, uh, like Martinez from Villa, who could, even though you'd be gambling on Spurs to win, you can be relying on some save points and BPS from Martinez as well. And with it's the thing that concerns me about 29 is the free hit, because although we've seen a lot of the FPL community on Twitter talk about free hitting 32 instead, I think overall in the game we're going to be seeing a lot of people using the free hit in 29 because it's the biggest blank I can remember seeing
Yeah.
for fixtures.
Right. The next question is from Steve Bird. He asks, I'm bench boosting because I'm a cool kid. Yes, you are a cool kid, Steve. Um, Anyone that I should have in my squad from this game week and an eye on 29, preferably they have a double this week. I think you mentioned one earlier, which was quite interesting, and which is Traore
Hmm.
from Villa.
Yeah,
Um,
he's been quite under the radar throughout the season, but he starts every week
yeah,
down on the right hand on the right wing. I mean, yeah, he's gone very much under the radar because of the likes of Martinez, Cash, Target, Grealish, Watkins, all, and even El Ghazi when um, went through the like when Barkley was injured, El Ghazi was starting every week, and I can see El Ghazi coming back in because Barkley's form since he's come back from injury hasn't been great. But yeah, Traore down that right hand side really interests me, and I think he's my Grealish replacement because with the Grealish injury, like as I said earlier, if we don't hear anything by the deadline on whether Grealish will be fit for 26, 27, 28 or 29 and beyond. I mean, it was muted by Dean Smith the other night. Oh, yeah, but I'm not sure. He's touch and go for the Leeds game. We're going to have an assessment on him. Now, he could just be saying that for the same reason he didn't want to reveal in his press conference that Grealish was injured. He wants to keep the opposition guessing because Grealish is he's his ace of spades, isn't he? That's his big player, and teams know that if they haven't got Grealish there, they don't have to worry about him, um, and don't have to do what like West Ham did a couple of weeks ago and stick the extra man on to cover him and nullify the threat. So yeah, it's Traore's one that I'm really looking at this week. But then, yeah, touched upon a moment ago the Fulham assets. Fulham looking a lot better in the last few weeks. The only concern is the 27 fixture against Liverpool and the 28 fixture against City. So if you bring him in for the double this week and for the 29 fixture, you're going to be having them on the bench for 27 and 28. So you've got to be comfortable with that. Um, Other than that, there's there's not much. Maybe Arsenal, um, but yeah, it's a tough fixture against Leicester. Um, then they've got Burnley.
they don't double game week this week, though, do they?
No, but it's one to look forward into the next few weeks. Maybe Arsenal. I think Leeds. I think if you've got two or three Leeds players sitting on your bench this week, it's you you're still sitting with a good bench boost. I think like Villa have
Okay.
struggled defensively, so yeah.
Right. The next question comes from FPL 350. Um, I would love to hear your reflections on Everton and Leicester defensive assets. Luke Thomas, is he starting? Pereira with great fixtures playing as midfielder, worth a transfer despite his higher price. Is Dean a potential triple captaincy option?
Should we answer the last question first? No.
I
um,
think he's a good option to have, though. Not a
oh yeah.
triple captaincy
Yeah,
differential,
you
but
wouldn't captain him with the people
wh-
that we've
when
spoken about already.
when I was looking at the stats for XG conceded, obviously I didn't mention it because Everton aren't against anyone that they have a double game week against. But Everton defensively are pretty shit at the moment, even though they didn't concede to Liverpool. But generally, their defense is not great. And Southampton, I think Southampton, they're playing Southampton, West Brom, and I think they could potentially concede in both. West Brom are looking a lot better recently.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't think I would consider Dean. In terms of Leicester assets, what um, defensive assets? So Pereira playing as a midfielder, is he worth a transfer?
Again, I think it's all dependent on your situation. I don't think I'll be bringing him in at the moment, um, but he's someone that I'd look later on. I mean, yeah, the fixtures do look really good for Leicester, which is the struggle. It's just, yeah, Pereira's a lot of money that you might want to use elsewhere, and I think if you're bringing in Pereira, you might be losing a City defender um, to make the space for that. It all depends on your personal like situation. Um, but yeah, for OOP defender, it could be a great move. Um,
In terms of Luke Thomas, he's only started against Villa. He played 90 minutes, 4.2 million. Is he going to be starting regularly? I don't know.
I think
I don't think we can
it's
answer that.
all
It's too early to tell, isn't it?
yeah, it's all down to I think the injuries and players coming back from injury. Yeah, it's not something you want to take as a banker really. It's not like some of the other players that we've seen um, elsewhere, and like players like James Justin that have been really cheap and have ended up starting regularly. So yeah, probably wouldn't be, especially at this stage in the season, taking gambles on the unknowns. You'd rather take gambles on things that you can back up with stats. But there is a very severe lack of that with Luke Thomas.
We've got more of a statement than a question from FPL Glasto. I'm on a bench boost, but after a failed wildcard that left me with 5 single game week players. Shout out to the wildcard support group. You know who you are. Shout out to you, FPL Glasso. And then we've got a final question from Stu Lord, who, after last week's question, asked about pancakes. If you remember, Rob,
Yep.
um, what um, what James's favorite pancake topping. This week he asks, "This is the happy hour. What's your favorite beer? Steady rolling man, Dever for me. I'll be honest, you, I fucking hate beer. Like, I cannot drink it. I cannot stand it. But I do like cider. So my favourite cider is Recorderlick. Summer berries. Wow, it's lovely, mate. Nice, fruity, girly cider.
Such a girl.
What's your favourite? I am such a girl, mate. What's your favourite beer, Rob?
One of my favourite ones is actually a local brewery, which is just up the road called Firebird. Really nice guys, and they produce some
Sounds hot.
they produce some great beers. And my favourite one's called Work Ethic, which is a New England IPA. And with it being payday on Thursday, I'll be taking a trip to the brewery, probably on Thursday as a little treat. And there's a little cafe, so I can buy the boy a milkshake or some ice cream or something if the weather's nice. But yeah, the primary thing will be going to the brewery, and I'll get a work ethic for when we go live this week, which actually that leads us
Yes,
quite nicely
leads
into
us
that.
quite nicely. Indeed. So in terms of our schedule for the rest of the week, so those eagle-eyed or I don't know what the word for listening, being good listeners will know that we haven't done the 5v5 this episode, and that is because we're going to be live streaming it on Friday. So this Friday we'll be doing a special double game week dilemmas episode, live streaming at around 10 o'clock. So if you haven't made your transfers this week, you can ask us any questions that you've got. We'll be doing the 5v5 during that episode, which I won last week, I think, Rob. This week will be interesting, being a double game week. And I think what else are we going to be covering? I think that's pretty much it. Your questions, essentially, right?
Yeah, we'll go through your questions. We'll probably, I know that both of us are very much up in the air about what moves we want to make, and so I think a lot of what we plan to do with our moves this week will rely on the press conferences. So we didn't really want to talk about those plans now, just in case they all change when Dean Smith tells us that Grealish is back for game week 26, which is,
that fucks
I think,
everything up.
yeah, that's the press conference that sways me one way or another way, or a third way. There's three different directions I could go from that one particular press conference. So yeah, all eyes on Villa Park on, I think it's Friday morning.
There we go. So please join us on Friday night. That will be a good episode, and we can answer any of the questions that you've got as well. So until Friday, thanks for tuning in. Any feedback is really important. Did you like the new statistics that we chucked in this week? Was it too much? Was it not enough? Let us know. You can find us on Twitter at FPL_happy hour. We also are on a number of podcasts. And on our YouTube channel is FPL Happy Hour. Please like, subscribe, and share. And all your retweets and loves and likes is really appreciated. So until Friday, I will see you later. Good night.
See you later, guys.